And now what is it? This magical PMF, in theory, of course, it's very simple, it sounds easy. You have understood what customer pains and needs are, and you have enough of those customers who have a certain pain. And you have the fitting solution for that, a strong solution that is appealing. So that's nice, that's problem-solution fit. But that alone is not yet a business. So you also need the business model around it. That's the way how you make money with that offering that you have created. And that again is not enough for product market fit. You also need a team that is passionate, skilled, which makes this roadmap that you have happen, make this vision a reality. And then all around that, of course, you also need some capital to fuel the bonfire that you are starting. So in theory, it looks like a very simple puzzle, but no surprise. In reality, in practice, it is very complex, multidimensional, and not an easy thing to achieve. So we have the obvious candidates of what are the demands from customers, how does the market look like, but then there might also be laws or regulations that you need to take into account so that your business can work. Or you can also say that it's not just a product market fit, it's also product, channel, business model market fit, because let's assume we're looking at those things right here. Let's say channels, business model, pricing, those things right here. I'll give you an example. If you sell a product that maybe costs 10 francs, 20 francs, then this is something that people will quite easily buy. You don't need to build a professional and expensive sales force to sell that product. It's an impulse buy. It's an easy buy. And then on the other hand of the spectrum, you have maybe a product that costs 1,000 francs and you have a good margin on it. And this allows you to hire a professional sales force that is also able to sell that expensive product. Because a product for 1,000 francs is not that an easy sell. You need a sales force for that to make it happen. And then in between, there's this tricky spot of if you offer something for, let's say, 200 bucks, and your margin isn't that great, then you actually need a sales force, but you can't afford it. So, tricky place to be in. That's what I mean with, it's not just product market fit, it's product, channel, market, business model fit, it's multidimensional. That's what I'm trying to say. And now, what do you want to look out for? How do you start recognizing if you're coming close to PMF? And just by the way, don't fool yourself or trick yourself into believing, oh, we might have it now. Things are going great. We have a bit more downloads today. You shouldn't trick yourself into it because if you prematurely scale, you run into troubles. So what do you need to look out for? Obviously, a happy customer base, that's always key, and it's constantly growing. Next step, you start to notice an increased sales dynamic. There's coming some momentum. It changes from a push to a pull kind of element. Then your organization starts to work like clockwork. Your processes start to work, those kinds of things. That helps, of course, as well. And then customer profit or profit per customer starts increasing. That's also a very good sign. And obviously, the sweet spot again, if you achieve to get all of that mixture in your business, then it's not just like one of your metrics changes for 10% to the better. It is really transformative. It really becomes this momentum that all of a sudden you cannot even build your product fast enough because your clients want it, or you have such a good customer understanding that you realize you're solving one problem for them, and now they want to solve you another problem for them. And there's coming a dynamic into it. So this is a great position to be in. And maybe let's do a short exercise. And if you want to give your opinion, then a mic will be coming to you. We now here have 3 examples. It's not a trick question. You might find it very easy. We have one company with very great organization and great sales dynamic, not so great yet with the customer base and the profit. Example 2, happy customer base, achieved that. Sales dynamic, quite all right. Organization not top, profit not top as well. Example number 3, happy customer base, very good sales dynamic, good profits, but the organization is a mess. Which of these three examples would you say, I want to invest in that company, or that's the winner? What would you say? There's one in the back. I can repeat the question or the answer if you want.
So go for the middle one, but not knowing about the potential of the market. I would like to have more information.
Okay, one answer was going for the middle one. So here, happy customer base, sales dynamic, profit. There's another one.
I would rather invest in example number 3 because the organization I can change, and the other things are much more difficult.
All right, here we heard example number 3, because organization topics, that's something I can work on, I can change. And me personally, I would agree with that. Creating or having a happy customer base is one of the hardest things in a startup. So if you have that covered and sales dynamic is great already and all of those things, that's fantastic. Getting a good organizational structure, some more processes into your business, that's the easiest way. For that you can go into a business school, do a continuous education or whatever, and then you get to that point, or can hire a COO, whatever. So this is improving this situation here is much, much easier than, for example, something like here where your customer base is not at all happy yet. So just as an example. Now, it's of course a good idea to not just try to achieve PMF blindly by accident. It's much better if you try to go about it in a strategic manner. And that's what I'm here for, to present a method or a framework, how you can think about strategically approaching product market fit. So this is a well-documented and structured dynamic plan to achieve it. And the benefits are obvious. If you have something like that, a strategy that gives you a North Star, it gives you a goal that the entire team can work towards. It also gives you focus and stability because you know what you have to do. Also, having a strategy written down, structured, documented, that forces you also to really think about your business mechanics, understand your business mechanics. So what are our customer acquisition costs? What is our retention? What is the daily usage? Or whatever the KPIs might be. But this kind of strategy forces you to really look closely at those kinds of things. And now, just as a start, the in principle methodology towards the product market fit, here outlined in a few simple bullets. Of course, it's never that simple, but just for the sake of argument. First, you need to establish what product market fit means for you. So get an understanding for that in the first step. Then, second step, you need to think strategically about your company. So that is what I meant with work on your company and not just in your company. Those are things like, where do we want to go? What is our vision for the company? Are the founders aligned where we want to go? So this is like creating a North Star, and I will get to that in a second. Then once you have that, of course, it's about step-by-step prioritization. What do we tackle when, in what order? Then I would say one of the most critical points, number 4, it's nice to have a strategy, but as long as you do not translate that into measurable objectives, milestones, etc., then things might get lost quite easily. So it has to be transferred into something measurable. And then you work on that structurally and, of course, repeat. You need to review the state of your company, of your business, and adjust. It's never just we do one plan one time and then it will happen like that. There's, I think Mike Tyson once said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And you will get punched in the face. So you need to revisit those plans regularly. So first step, I mentioned the North Star. This is an exercise, so to speak, that you can do with your team, your co-founders, so that you really talk about the same thing where the company should head towards. Because it's really bad if, for example, one of the co-founders says, I want to build that company over the next 5 years and make an exit so that I never ever need to work again in my life. That's a very different mindset compared to I want to build a company and build it from the ground up over the next 10, 20 years and really build something meaningful I will never sell. That's something that you need to really take care of early on, because otherwise you might go haywire and run into big trouble. And this is just one example, and more examples are here. How many employees do you want to have? What will your role be? Do you want to be CEO forever, or do you rather want to move away and, as a founder, hand over the CEO role to somebody else? All those things, you need to have a clear vision where your company should be in 10 years. So that's the North Star, the guiding star, or you could say the compass. Then obviously from that you can start to reverse engineer or think backwards and say, what does product market fit look like on that path? What are milestones, number 2, 1, 3, whatever it is, and then come to your current status and build your progress. Now we're getting into a bit more detail, because so far that was of course all quite simple and superficial. And what I meant with it has to be translated into measurable objectives and measures that you take with your business. Here's an example. I would argue it's a B2B example from the details that we have here, but it's an imaginary example. So, as said, you start with what does product market fit for you really look like in your company? And then also define what kind of metrics, KPIs do we need to look at. Some classics are customer acquisition costs, or customer lifetime value, or what is the daily usage, what is the retention rate. Those kinds of things definitely are critical for your product market fit definition. And then you work backwards into what do you want to reach when, and again you see it's quite detailed, and that is important. And now, what is a good framework to get these information, or what is a good framework to think with your team about those things? We have a suggestion for that. This is step number 1, and then this is the overall picture. And I will now guide you through this step by step. So first, of course, you need to assess yourself. We talked about premature scaling, so this is all about assessing yourself. How ready to scale are you? And this is, of course, an important question in different dimensions. We have critical things like, how good do I understand our customers or our competitors? Do I have a very good understanding of the pains and needs, those kinds of things? Or value proposition and target audience. Do I have a very good understanding, and am I sure about who our target audience is? And I could go through all of them, but I think you get the idea. And then you need to make an honest assessment, where do you stand, and that then helps you to find out where do you need to put your attention to. So now let's put it into the big picture. This is, you could call it the product market fit strategy canvas. Everybody needs a canvas every once in a while. So this is one that was developed by BAdvanced together with Michael Sauter, who is not here in the room today, but definitely also a person that you should talk to. He was the head of the Center for Innovation and Digitalization. He was in Silicon Valley for a couple of months, just returned, and he's definitely also a good person to talk to discuss product market fit and maybe some interesting anecdotes from the Valley. But that aside, that's something that we developed as a guide, as a framework, so that you can approach your product market strategy. First up, that's what I meant with the North Star. It's your company vision. Where do you want to go? Then number 2, we talked about that as well. It's formulating your understanding of what product market fit would look like, basically in principle. From that step 2, you then move to step 3. And step 3 are those milestones that I mentioned earlier. You start with what are the targets and what are the KPIs, so the metrics that show you if you have reached those targets or not. And from that you work backwards. Maybe it's 3 milestones, 4, who knows? You need to decide that for yourself. Of course, this always depends on your context. And then once you have that, number 5, that's the assessment. Where do we stand today? Of course, every strategy always needs those 2 elements. Where do we want to go? Where are we today? What do we do about the gap? This is the assessment of today. And then here in detail, you go into each of these categories of the self-assessment and start defining what is the gap that we have. For example, you could say here in this example, oh gosh, customer insights, pretty bad. You should want to have that here at a 9 or a 10. So there's a huge gap apparently. You need to define some measures that you then take to approach that problem. And again, be as concrete as you can. And you do that then for all the different elements that we have here in this assessment. And obviously here are just a couple of examples how this could look like. And eventually that's not something you do once and then forget about it. Ideally, you keep taking this framework into a team meeting, a strategy meeting, and refine, adapt it regularly. Of course, not every week maybe, but depending on your stage, maybe every month, every quarter, but definitely not just once every year and not every day. I could imagine that there are now some questions around that framework or about something that has been mentioned earlier. Now might be a good point, since we have this overview behind us, if you would like to learn more about a detail. And if not, of course, you can also ask questions just throughout the rest of this presentation. All right. If you then have this canvas filled out and have a good understanding of your KPIs or the measures you want to take, then of course it makes sense to create some sort of a cockpit, a dashboard that helps you to see where do we stand at the moment. Do we have some green lights, some red lights? So in this example, you would say, okay, Net Promoter Score, that's a good KPI to see how happy are my customers. If you are just at 33%, that cannot be in line with your goals. NPS should be, let's say, at 50 above, 60 above. So this is not at all something you can be satisfied with. Therefore, you know, all right, we need to focus on customer understanding, customer insights, happy customer base, those topics. On the other hand, you, for example, see, all right, daily usage rate is good, in a good shape here, or maybe something else could be returning users, or if you're selling a product, what is the renewal rate of sales? How often do customers return to buy again? There are many different KPIs that make sense, but they depend on the business. And if you have such an overview, that gives you a very clear indication of where you need to put your energy on to strategically or methodologically, tricky word, reach the product market fit. Yeah. And now from the detailed perspective, back to the basics, to the key takeaways. You should always focus first on the customer value, regular review your plans, your strategy, and then, of course, adapt, learn, and with that, I believe you will approach product market fit much more intentionally and not just stumble upon it by accident. One final quote, and I think that's also an important takeaway. Product market fit is the CEO's job. That's not something you delegate. You do not give that to the intern and say, well, think a little bit about PMF. It's not the right way to do it. It has to be the CEO's job, the founder's job. And also very important to notice, achieving PMF is not something that usually happens within a couple of months. That can take years. And that's what I meant with the burn rate. make sure you're able to keep iterating, experimenting until you reach that magic spot where it suddenly starts to work, when suddenly being the startup becomes easier. Not easy, but easier because you have that momentum. Yeah, and with that, if you want to learn more, of course, I'm here all day. We can chat, have a coffee or some lunch.